President of the Board of Trustees of the Estes Valley Library District. And we have our full board: Lynn Lawson, David Hemphill, Kay Weston, Ann Dewey, Beth Ellis, Pete Johnson with us. In addition, Ann Finley from the Friends and Foundation, and staff: Claudine Perot, Cindy Seckman, and Joanna Stensland. Welcome everyone. And tonight in our study session, the plan is to cover the 2022 operating plan update that Claudine and staff have prepared, as well as a general discussion on the community needs assessment process. And so we'll get right into that. With Claudine starting off with her summary or her approach to the discussion on the operating plan. Claudine.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. I think that by tonight, this will be the third time you'll have had a chance to review the 2022 operating plan. However, it is different each time slightly because of, thanks for Lynn, I'm sorry I saw you laugh. Partly because the first time you saw it, it was a draft in progress. The second time you saw it, there was very helpful feedback that perhaps the measures were too ambitious. So this version is the version that the tactical team, and the tactical team is admin staff and all the supervisors. So just to let you know, kind of the leadership team is what we call tactical, all had a chance, to take a big breath and look at the activities to see if they really could deliver on these promises. So although it's probably 92% the same as the first time you saw it in October or November, there are subtle changes. So tonight I'm going to monologue for just a few minutes and then open it up for any more comments or questions or concerns you might have. So in review, what you have seen in previous board packet meetings, thanks, Joe, and you'll give us a nice close-up if you wouldn't mind, was that the 2021 operating plan is the first one I can think of in my time here where it wasn't part of a larger strategic plan. My request to you was, this is a bridge year. The original strategic plan, pre-COVID, was supposed to end, I believe, in 2021, and it did. Ordinarily, we would have had begun the process of planning for the next 3 to 5 years, but I used COVID, the feedback from the board about a community needs assessment and so on. I simply tacked on another year where we were operating as if the strategic plan hadn't changed. So the good news is there should be no surprises to the board, right, on the operating plan. The bad news is regrettably, there may not be anything that really motivates you as the governing body because there's nothing new, okay, in terms of our goals, okay, and major activities. So that's the big overview of the operating plan. The second part is, you've seen us do in the past kind of the top level things, the keystones that we are looking at. So before I hit on the goals, objectives, and activities, there's it's I think fairly predictable but also reasonable that the keystones are, hey Joe, would you mind, can we go any more, because I can't read off of is that okay for the board? Is that better? Okay, thanks, Joe. I will not be using a fine-tooth comb for all of this, but to highlight the changes, okay, from your last version. So starting with the keystone, these are predictable overarching measures of we're trying to return our library use to pre-COVID numbers if possible. We are always looking to improve our library services, but they're emphasized once again on building a culture of early literacy and providing more services to a increasingly diverse community. Okay, so thinking a little differently about the services we offer, and then investing in the library workplace because safety practices switch, as they will on February 12th, right? We're back to a maskless Larimer County. But for the record, the staff will remain masked and behind the acrylic sneeze guards, but the rest of the world will not be. And we're very committed to retaining the staff we've had on staff and that we've recently hired. So, tending to the culture. So those will be, I hope, where as we meet quarterly this year to talk about progress on the operating plan, it will be my desire that we spend most of our time on these keystones. And of course, please feel free to ask anything about the goals, objectives, and activities below it. John, any questions thus far?
No, not from
Okay.
me.
Okay.
So I think we can move to the actual goals and objectives.
Thank you. Joe, you can scroll down a little bit for us if you would. So one of the big differences from all of our previous strategic plans and operating plans is we name names. We usually don't put that out for the public, but I don't think there's any harm. Now that we have new staff members, we're being very precise as to who is responsible for what. So nothing here is different than what you've seen before. Joe, if you can scroll down, when the content is, there it is, future, italicized, that's the change from the previous version, okay, that you saw. So these are the things for the future. So it's a way of acknowledging we believe these things are important, but perhaps not urgent. And so that's the new code, right, for you as the governing board. Is the backward design plan was postponed because, as you know, the program team was down to one person. We're up to 5 now. Our full complement is 6, which we're not hiring until next year. But so that will occur in the future. And the families with incoming kindergarten students, that measure, even though I really want to give the school tremendous credit. If you read in the last report, they went from 36% were ready to learn in their first DIBELS test to 66% in 2 years. So of course, library can take probably almost 0 credit for that. So our measure is at issue right now, but I wanted to just tell you that's why those things have been pulled out for future consideration. Joe, can you scroll down? So, and we're just looking for the italics to see what's different from, there it is, there's one. Can you go back down a little for me so I can see it in the, a little further, please? Thanks. So actually, can we see the objective itself? Thanks. So objective C is developing young minds. We have a fantastic young adult librarian. She's just been with us for a few months, Bree. She's a bit of a dream youth librarian. She's incredibly creative and organized. So what you're going to see is, if you haven't already, quite a volume of programs being offered, and our community is really showing up for them. So that last future measure, and I have to give Kay credit for saying some of these measures may have been too ambitious. This one, evaluations that attendees revealed that they perceived value was a bit broad, so we removed it. And we're going to look at sort of very traditional input-output measures rather than qualitative right now. Okay, so that's the change from the last one.
And just to make sure everyone's aware, this whole objective is brand new from previous. So the objective as well as the activities and the measures are
the activities are, that's right,
previous.
Thank you, John.
Okay,
going down, Joe, and clearly you have to go slow for me. Okay, thanks. So a little higher up. So the objective is, this is the hard skill stuff: health, law, finance, death, CPR, babysitting, right? Those are all, everything remains the same. And you'll see that there's an adult with Brad, our new kind of makerspace librarian, and again, Bree. And they're still looking at some performance measures that are qualitative, but what we moved to the future was a little bit more intensive tracking the correlation between program and database use. I can talk more about that if you'd like, and applying our statistics. So we're gathering the statistics this year, but we'll apply them in future years. Okay. Let's see.
Claudine, can you
yes.
just clarify for me, say the first activity says we'll offer repeat monthly programs. In that context, what does repeat mean?
It's a good question.
It was used similarly throughout, and
So something that libraries tend to do is spend a lot of time developing, if you will, curriculum for one program and offering it once. And so what we're endeavoring to do is, if you've created something, keep offering it, offer it Tuesday night, Thursday morning, and Saturday afternoon, the same content. So it's another way of saying with our new hires, you don't have to show up with a full portfolio of all the things you're going to offer as our makerspace librarian. You can come up with 24 things this year and offer them a total of 3 times each. And I, the director, will consider that a success. Okay, anything else? So that's the repeat part. Thank you. Also, thanks to Allison, her contribution was, if we're creating something, did we put it in a kit people can check out? Is it in a grab and go? Are we live streaming it? So Allison is looking at how do we maximize access to the community when we offer something 1 time or 3 times. Okay. You can go ahead down. Thanks, Joe. So can we see what the context of that one is, please? All right, so the touch screen. Okay, so this is the more leisure objective, which is when you see music, we do mean Dr. DeYoung's fantastic class, but we also mean like circulating and having musical instrument classes, high altitude gardening, other make and takes. So if you'll scroll down, Joe, board members, you'll see we were going to do these kit level report cards. And again, a qualitative measure, we removed those, but it's not a removal. We kept them for the future. So again, maybe a few more metrics than we needed this year. Okay.
Claudine, this is
Yes,
the
John.
one that starts off, and there's some that follow that you've moved the measures to the future, but the activities are still there. And so I guess I see that even if it's an initial element as far as the activity, that there would be maybe some limited measure to say that, yeah, it's been initiated at least by a certain date.
John, I agree with you. And if Joe will, this is a flaw. Maybe we need to make this not quite as big as I asked Joe. Can you bring it down to 175? Or 150 is fine too. And scroll up a little for us so you can, okay. So John, we do have a measure, at least one measure for each objective, but not necessarily for every discrete activity.
And that's what I'm getting at. You've got activities. So you feel that the one measure is covering those 3 activities?
The answer is
or
yes.
Just the objective in general?
It's covering the objective in general. Okay. So notice that for this one, the lead is, so all the leads are part of the leadership team, right? So at the library, somebody from the program team and the technical team might be working together on a project, but the objective lead, the person responsible, is probably Allison or Catherine or another supervisor. So Catherine is the one who advocated, right, that this is the measure that best correlates with the activities to show that we've achieved that objective.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, it sort of reads to me too, John, like there's a measure built into the activity, which is these are weekly, these are monthly, that, you know, there's a measure of, are we doing the amount we said? It's not measuring the outcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I would just have had a more minor measure, if you will.
Okay.
If you're going to have significant activities going on, but if you feel that those are covered by the one performance measure, that's fine by me too. But that, as I read through it, that was something I noticed kind of from here on down, that where on the first couple, I could identify you took an activity out and a corresponding measure.
It's fair, John. It's a fair observation and critique that the initial version was tit for tat, and this one is less so. Lynn, I would agree with you that we're going to be able to measure, again, the output of use, right? But because Will, Brad have offered weekly programs, monthly kit programs, and then frequent, I was being a little bit more generic, guest artist, music, gardening, presenter. So those will almost all take place in the makerspace, and we're hoping that it's enough. But John, this is your feedback is continuously welcome. At the end of this, you all as the governing board can say, yeah, don't like that, or I can live with it, or can we change something? Okay.
I have a question about overall, maybe statistics and other information that you might be collecting. I think from my perspective, I would imagine that participation numbers are important to gauge like how well received it was, the interest that people express and whether they show up or not, whether they sign up and then they show up. So are there those kinds of statistics that are collected sort of overall for all programming that wouldn't be listed here individually?
And that was like a Hail Mary throw, and I'm going to catch that ball because yes, thankfully the state of Colorado requires us. We are required to have data that is gathered by who? Joanna, right? Joanna kind of corrals us all to make sure we're gathering the data as we're supposed to. And it's due to the state by March 15th so that we can then compare ourselves to other libraries in the state. And then that data all goes to at the national level. So we can compare ourselves nationally. That takes 2 years. Joe, what's the number you said? Did you say it was 288 metric points that we send into the state?
Sorry, I had to unshare. It was actually, yes, probably around 300 lines of data that have to be filled in for that.
And for your benefit, as we will see quarterly reports on this, we generally see comments about that kind of thing, how many participated and the feedback, usually some sharing of 1 or 2 participants actual words as far as what they fed back on the program. So that's been the practice in the past. I assume, Claudine, that we would see things similar in the future.
So yes, John and Anne, the short answer after my long answer is yes, we are required to collect that data. And so that data is being collected. It is aggregated. And so what Joe has enabled us to do with her spreadsheeting is probably what we're going to see is all the children's programs offered per month, all the number of people, the number of programs offered, the number of people who attended. So what I think what you're asking is a little different. And I'm going to ask Catherine, who I bet is already actually keeping that data. I don't see it. Can you please keep program level data disaggregated?
Yeah,
that
I think that would answer one of the questions.
Yes, I would agree.
Programming successful and worth it.
Yep.
Good point.
Thank you. I just wanted Joanna to show off on, I know it sounds like just a nice big number, but they change what we're measuring every year. And I know I'm being recorded, Joe, but it frustrates Joanna. So, Joe, anything else?
It's awfully hard to compare things when you don't have consistent measures.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. They evolve. The measures are constantly evolving.
They're evolving. They're evolving.
Yeah.
Yes.
Joe, anything else before we go back to the document?
Nope. I'll share my screen again.
Thank you. And I've got the notes down. Thank you for the feedback so far to share back with the staff. Okay, we're still on, we're about to move to 3. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So under objective B, which is current affairs and decision making, we do have a fairly generic qualitative measure that we retained, and what we pushed to the future was additional services to meet underserved populations. So again, it's not that we don't think it's important, but we're starting with the easier stats. I'm gonna move on. Okay, under objective C, which is civic life and village events, we're still doing participation in those civic events, and we added, I don't know if that was there before, John, but we're really trying to make sure that the staff has all the tools they need to connect patrons at any transaction point to what else they might be interested in. So that's why we have that staff will report that this thing we calling a trail map, which we can show you if you'd like, has helped them to better serve our patrons this year. But the one we removed for future is the heaviest one. Majority of participants surveyed will identify the library as a key asset in the community. That's my ambitious goal. And we're going to have to offer a bit more, I think, before we ask the question.
Fair enough.
Okay. Moving down to objective D, which is our meeting rooms, which at one point we couldn't keep up with demand. Then there was no demand, and we have demand growing again. Is our book a librarian appointments. It's still February and we haven't started offering them yet because we have so many new staff, right, to learn the things that they have to do to make it possible for them to train staff, patrons. So that also got deferred to the future. Okay, delivering materials on a personalized basis, goal 4. So we're still going to measure in terms of physical and digital material use that patrons check out 15% more materials than they did by the end of up to 2021. And book club requests will continue to increase. But we removed and delayed circulation increase, even though we think we can hit it. It's just and that the book clubs will have integrated more thoroughly with the book clubs. Again, we just hired someone in January. We'd like time to get them up to speed. So those were delayed. Let's see, under objective 5, which is essentially what your admin team is up to. The development, this is Joanna determined the ones she thought she could do. And of course, she thought she could do 4 out of 5 of them. So I just want to out her that the one she delayed was that 50% of staff will report that the retention programs were of value. And so that retention program in review, we've just started the idea of a referral bonus. And so we're still coming up with those and finding out from our peers what's working. So we'll do that. We'll test that in 2023. Moving on to objective B, which is our physical and technical capacity building. We are going to do nerdy things like re-roof, recoat the roof, right? These are just the things that have to be done. We are kind of in a nerdy way, pretty excited about this laserfiche evolution. I think, I'm not sure what we're hiring Shelley Tressel. Many of you might know her. She does permanent documents all around town and actually all around the state. And she's going to help us migrate to this online document management system. I think we're probably 5 to 10 years behind on this. So those are not going anywhere. We really need to keep those.
But you say hiring as a contractor, right?
Did I say she is our contractor? Thanks, John. Yeah,
hiring
we're contracting her to do it.
Yeah, right.
We're paying her. We're contracting her. There we go. But the things we took off were the measures that were specific for technology, about streaming quality and so on, connectivity, and that staff being prepared for emergencies. Now, please understand, every year we do emergency training with the staff. That doesn't go away. What we just want to do a little bit more. For instance, we just learned that our Alice trainer may not be available, the active shooter training. So these things evolve over time, but while we are doing emergency training for the staff, we're not assessing it until 2023. Okay. Maybe I should have started with that. I always bury the lead. The activities largely remain the same. Mm-hmm. It's our measures of them that are being stretched further.
Okay. All
right, let's see where we are. Well, we've got objective C, and you'll notice it's Seckman, and Seckman, our accountant. And I don't know what to say other than, once again, the paperless invoicing was another way of saying laserfiche or competitor is coming. But the segregation of financial duties, the position for the part-time accounting assistant posts this Friday or next week. Cindy, I don't know if you can tell us when, but in February. And but the actual segregation of duties may not occur to the board satisfaction until 2023, right? So the activity is occurring, but the measure has been delayed. And we're always trying to make sure our internal controls are effectively reviewed. So again, we're hoping that that assistant will do it. They probably won't begin until April.
The post is going in as of tomorrow, should be in the paper tomorrow. So,
Thanks, Cindy. And good luck. May the hiring force be with you.
thank you.
Okay. And where are we? Objective D is marketing and outreach. So as you can see, the community needs assessment is still on there, right? And we are going to ask program attendees to tell us how they heard about the program. But what was delayed was our outreach or speakers bureau. Very successful. We've even remotely, Rotary Club and others have welcomed us even by Zoom, but we're just not prioritizing that until next year. And for what it's
Okay.
worth, we got this really sophisticated door count software so that we can now track, like if there's a big makerspace program on the second floor or story time on the first floor, we can track per hour our traffic patterns. So that's Allison, of course, being our tech wizard, but we won't be correlating that and reporting it out to you for another year.
Okay.
All right. And lastly is our focus on evaluation, laser focus on evaluation services. And something I have long wanted, and I can wait another year, is a habit of, for those of you in the corporate world, you know about continuous improvement, you know, as a concept, and debriefing seems very generic, but it's actually a Harvard business model where every project, big and small, takes just a few minutes of a practice of debrief. So it's a cultural point I want to bring to our organization. We practice it inconsistently. And so it's a future goal for the director that we do a better job of continuous improvement. I realize that's like almost 80s, 90s speak, and it always has a new term. It's the same activity with a new title. And that's the Harvard business model for debriefing. So I can talk more about that in 2023. So that's the summary in half an hour. And thank you for your questions. There may be additional comments or questions on the floor.
Let's open it up for any comments any of the board have. Just unmute yourself, raise your hand so I can acknowledge you. Nothing. I still think or see it as a very, as far as activity wise, ambitious. There's lots of new things. As Claudine says, we have new staff, and hopefully they dig into it right away and can make a dent in those kind of activities, even if we're not doing a specific performance measure on them. Anyone, this is your opportunity.
Can you hear me? I just put in new
Yes.
headphones. And I don't know
Yes,
if they're
Beth.
appropriate. I was just, it just struck me how many new names are showing up in here. And I'm just connecting to, you know, what this, I'm curious what this feels like for the staff, what, you know, how it's landing. To me, I think you've done a great job of really clear and getting really precise about what is important. And I appreciate the work a lot. And the question on my mind is just how are folks really, how are the staff feeling about it? Which, because I see so many new names and I wonder just, you know, where it's headed. I don't know if I have a solid question in here. There's something that struck me about that, like there's some brand new stuff that's really clear and really awesome. And it feels that way to me. I wonder how it feels to y'all.
I'll start, Beth.
Yeah.
You always ask very caring questions in my mind, and I appreciate it because I can say people who have been around the block with me appear quite on board, and the new folks are definitely like trying to figure out how to do what I'm asking them to do while learning their job. So here's good news. You'll be meeting them in the next couple of months, right? In the, meet the board for real. And I hope you all feel comfortable asking those kinds of questions, because that will, right now, and Joe, you can remind me, how long have we had the Brad and Eric? Has it been 3 weeks?
It's probably been about 3 weeks. That sounds about right. Yeah.
So just for context, right? Like, I know the first quarter, I really just want them to learn what their job is, what we've done in the past that was successful, that wasn't successful, and how they can approach the next 3 quarters. But I personally am not expecting big movements from them. Bree's been here a total of 6 or 7 very busy months, right, Joe? Maybe.
Yes, that's about right. Last summer. Yeah.
Yeah. So she already has her entire Beth. She has her entire year planned, right?
Oh.
So there, it takes a little time. It's a chug out the train station and off they go. So I hope you ask them. I don't know yet. I've only been working really intensively with the supervisors, and we reviewed the operating plan in January. And Joe, I want to throw you, I should say, under the train, since I'm using the train metaphor. We were going to dedicate January to like this in-depth operating plan review. But what did we do instead, Joe? Because you were in charge of it.
My mind's blank. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
You threw her under the bus.
It's worse. It's a train. Okay. No, what Joe, who's been leading our development team, like, so one person from each team works together to decide not necessarily what we're doing in terms of professional development, but how we're doing it. So January, nerdy Claudine was like, we're going to spend an hour and a half. We're going to review this ops plan.
Got it.
Right? It's
Got
okay,
it.
Joe. But you added love and light to it. Do you remember now?
Yes, I do remember. We had a theme of self-care for staff because we've been through the pandemic and it's been stressful. And so my staff development committee planned some wonderful activities for staff. And I think, it went very well. And it was a great start to the year.
It was a lot more team building than operating plan Nazi precision, which may have been where I was going. So Beth, that is my concern, and I'll peel off John in just a moment. Beth, my concern is in my desire to make it simple for the new staff to know which way I wanted them to go. I am a little concerned that it is too narrow and directive. So it's a little iterative right now. As you can see, some people have been here 3 weeks, and I'll keep you posted. How about that?
And I think part of it is you're still hiring. So you still have, we still have some positions to finish filling. So the full teamwork, some of the teams, I guess, program services is full now.
Yes, John, we would not have put the activity down if we didn't have the person in place to do it. Now, Melanie's been here how many years, Joe? 27? I just made that up. That's not true.
I think it's more like 20, 23.
23 years,
20,
right? Yeah. Like Melanie's got it, right?
Yeah.
But we wouldn't put the activity down if we didn't have the person. Melanie's got it. We're going to give Brad and Eric time.
Right.
All right. Thanks, Beth. I'm sorry. I can
It's a good question. And we will be meeting the different teams each month for the first few months. And as I say that, I am reminded that the board has been asked to fill out one of those also. 3 of us have, 4 of you have not. I encourage you at your first opportunity to please fill out that form that will introduce you to the staff. So we will have an opportunity to share so that the staff can meet us as well.
Thank you, John. So obviously I could spend a lot of time on this. It's a lot. It's dependent on, if you look at the objective leads, those are the people whose names I would love for you to focus on, because they're the true coordinators for the activities. But as we all know, I get to sit in my lovely corner office and dream stuff up. But the people really doing the magic are Murphy, Cavis, right? The names, but the person I'm interacting with the most is the objective lead. And that's who I think is who I will continue to get most of the information from. But you will have a chance to meet every last person on staff. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Anyone have any other comments or questions for Claudine on the operating plan for this year? It's your opportunity. Get any clarities. We
Claudine,
will have quarterly reports still. Yes, Lynn.
There's still in my head is a lot of uncertainty about what does this year look like? How quickly do we reopen? How do things change? Something unpredictable is going to happen.
Sure, I agree with
Ben
you.
has, I'd like to tell you what it is, but you know,
It's coming in a few months, whatever it is. So
whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah.
I assume you've got some process in place with your leadership team to sort of periodically step back and say, okay, in light of whatever that unexpected thing is, whether it's the pace of reopening or whatever, to review this and say, oh, here's what we need to adjust.
yes, I'm going to do a better job than I did with Beth. I'm going to start with the short answer. Yes, Lynn, we do have a process. Okay, ready? Here's the
Good.
process. Every month, the tactical team meets, and the top of the agenda is a check-in on the operating plan. We did it this Wednesday. It isn't a report out your progress. It's a little bit of that. It's mostly, how's it going? Have there been challenges we're unaware of? Are there additional resources needed to get the job done? What's shifted? So another example is Linda, who is the supervisor of our front desk, of our 2 desks, right, and our patron services and materials handling, remains understaffed. So just this week, right, we've all adjusted our schedules so that the admin team has a shift on the desk, technical services has multiple shifts, and so on. So there's still this, that's where we do literally tactical, like, okay, this isn't working and I need help. And I either need to reduce expectations or shift how we're approaching it. So it's only February, so we've just shifted so far. We we haven't, and Joe and Cindy, you guys are, I always look at you as my true witnesses. You know, is that true? Is that what you heard this week?
If either of you want to share, please do.
Or if you don't answer, that's the way of
No,
saying, no,
that's
that's
I
why
can't
Claudine
find
didn't
the
say any
thumbs
of
up.
that.
Yeah, I was fumbling for the buttons as well. Yes, we've discussed that in tactical this week.
And you know
the
what else you've
operate-
discussed, Joe? For
Yeah.
me to not like extemporaneously call on you. I apologize. I've done it.
5 times. I know it's okay.
I apologize. I'll do it to Cindy now. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So Lynn, that's the answer.
Okay, thank you. All right, so as I said, we will be having quarterly updates, reports on this plan, and we'll have opportunity for further discussion. So I think we can move along then. Sounds like to the second topic, and that is the process to follow for moving ahead with a community needs assessment. Claudine.
Thank you, John. John, if you'll forgive me, I think there's one thing I think I'm hearing over the months from the board about the operating plan. What I think I'm hearing is, Claudine, please don't burn out these fabulous people.
Definitely. Yep.
Yes. So please know I hear you. When I went back with the tactical team and said, hey, they'd like us to remove some measures. Everyone's words were, okay, let's do that. But everyone's body language was, whew. So thank you. I am aware. And what was the term? The indicators, Lynn, the ability to know when enough is enough. I do my best with the staff during these, especially these tactical meetings, to say, here's the place where we should be able to safely say, I don't know what you're asking for. I don't know how to do this. I need more resources to get it done, or can we delay it? So we talk that way often, Lynn, but I think I'll leave off with this. My actions and my words, I try and make them match. Sometimes they don't. and it takes a team to help me be honest with myself with that, but also know the staff has heard from me multiple times. The board's number one objective for me is to keep the staff retained and safe. So if my actions do not match that, let me know. So I feel like that's the best I can offer right now.
Okay.
Thanks. Just wanted to close that door before we go to community needs assessment. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for hearing that. So the idea of the community needs assessment, if I may go back to 2007, I promise I won't, just for a moment, to 2007. When I was hired, the board asked for an immediate strategic plan. And my answer to them at the time was, I'd love to, I'm happy to just write it out for you, but my opinions are worth some, but really we need to hear what the public wants. So at that time, we hired someone named Pat Wagner. She's very well regarded in library circles nationally. And she used a very informal system. There was some focus groups, which were quite helpful, but it was a lot of note taking and sort of old-fashioned paper and pen wordling, where we saw what were the themes from the community. And it really went far. I would argue that the content we got from the public from that process was a light community needs assessment, right? Then we've been mostly using the satisfaction gap survey that Bob Dickinson helped us employ. You might remember that, where we identified some of our lead services. We asked if they were valuable to the public, and then we said, how well are we providing these valued services? And then we would sort of fill the gap over time. So just wanted to remind you, this isn't the first time we've gone to the public. This is probably the fourth. But I think that this community needs assessment, if we're going to model it after what some of you saw at the Colorado Association of Libraries conference, is much bigger. This is a much bigger one. And there are many ways to skin the cat. I've only done some research. I'm nowhere near being an expert on the marketplace of CNA, that's the code, of CNA consultants. But I sent a query to my colleagues and then another, and asking, can I please have examples of your RFPs, and may I have examples of your actual CNAs? And what I finally come to realize is a lot of people do it homegrown. There are, to my knowledge at this point, only to my knowledge, guys, 4 providers available to us right now if we wanted to hire. And the ones I've seen that people have shared with me are all from the same vendor, and that's JVA. Okay, so I'm not trying to direct you there. I've never talked to them. I don't know them. But I'd like to recommend that I follow the same protocol that Grand County did. I had another conversation with Polly Gallagher, the director from Grand County, and I asked her the process she used since she didn't have an RFP. And she said, oh yeah, I'm not required to do an RFP. And she said, which I really loved, I looked at your policy because of your question, neither do you. Sorry, I thought that was hilarious. And so her point was, I simply wrote a request for proposal email, sent it to the various vendors, and had them respond with bids. And from that, I worked with my board to decide who we wanted to award it to. Some were very high bids, some were very low bids, and then the one she selected was somewhere in the middle. So I think if we can really refine the outcome we want from the assessment, that is the approach I would like to take, is a slightly less formal inquiry to multiple vendors, and I will shake the tree. I will try and find others and invite them to make a proposal and bid for this service. So I've only spoken to one so far because I only learned about him yesterday, and I love the irony of this. It's Jamie LaRue, who some of you may know from Libraryland. And I said, hey, Jamie, is it true that you offer this? And he said, yeah, I do. So I said, great, I'm going to be contacting you next week to more formally request a proposal. And he said, you betcha. So of the 4, I've spoken to 1, and I will have the same outreach to the other 3. So John, Lynn, everyone, if there are more questions, if you haven't had a chance to see the various, well, there really were only 2 that you were able to see. That was Grand County and Boulder. And the Boulder one was old. Was that 2017?
I
Things
think
feel
so.
5 years ago seems very old now, you know. Things
Mhm.
have really changed in the last 5 years. So, so that's where I'm at, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and help me set a good course.
Good, thank you. So it's open for some discussion as to the process that we will follow. And I would expect that if action is needed with regard to that, we will
Right.
do that at our February board meeting.
Correct.
So Government Affairs Committee is open to your comments and suggestions. Would appreciate them.
Claudine, oh,
Kay, I'm not calling Kay first.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
right.
Kay.
I looked at both of them. And I have to be honest, I was less than inspired. For the time difference, I felt that they pretty much were the same. And I didn't see in that timeline really anything that different. So when we are interviewing, I really think we need to look for the group that's going to push people to think outside of the box. You know, we've heard the term over and over again, the new norm. You know, experts are saying, whether we call it a pandemic, endemic, it's going to be coming and going for a long time. But things already now have changed. Claudine, you've alluded to it with our workers. People want to work at home when they can. But I think also the patrons, they may not know what it is that they want that might be different. But our survey, either in our questions or in the focus groups, have to push. And we can say, we want everything that we had before, you know, but what is new and different based on our needs? And so I really hope we find a group that will push people to think outside the box. The other thing is, they talked about the responders of the survey and, you know, the male, female, age groups, all those kinds of things. And I look at that and say, if I am responding myself personally, how can I talk about our early literacy? How can I talk about teen? So I'd like to think that when we're putting together focus groups, we're very specific and we make sure that we try to have a focus group of parents with pre-K kids, that we have actual teens, you know, that we're making sure that we're reaching out to some of the people's on objectives that we just have been talking about. Because I fear that if we just leave it to the numbers that be, people are going to be responding on stuff that they really don't know. So those were my two observations when I looked at them.
Thank you, Kay. Appreciate that. That's exactly some of the issues that I think we had by doing it ourselves in the past, and just basically sending out survey that we created and, you know, just added it all up. There were no focus groups. There was no dividing up into those kinds of categories, which I think, my understanding, at least from the Grand County presentation that was made at CalCon, was done for them. Maybe it doesn't read that way in the full report if you're not seeing that. Okay, Lynn, you had something?
yeah, I would reiterate what John said. One of the things that I heard in Polly's presentation about the Grand County work was how pleased they were that partway through the work, JVA, I think it is, said, worked with the library and said, where are the segments of the population we have not heard from? And very actively went seeking input from those groups. But I agree with you, Kay. It didn't, the study itself, I didn't really find that in. I guess the other comment that I would make, Claudine, when you're thinking about what to kind of spell out to these prospective providers of, what sorts of questions we're trying to answer, if we can also include the space question, as we're faced with the movement of town hall and what that means to us, if we can probe some on what's important to the community in terms of physically where we are. This seems like a good opportunity to gather some of that information. And that was probably already on your list.
Thank you. Others?
Something that comes to mind, and I appreciate everyone's comments. I agree with them. And I appreciate thinking of how do we get outside of the box. And this reality of doing this right now is I'm struggling with it a little bit, only because I don't know what next year looks like. And I don't know, there's this idea of like, how do we future proof a thing? And I kind of don't think we can, but like, you have to pay attention to what's possible and what kind of information that we're getting. And so, just thinking about where the library is headed, where libraries in general are headed, and what's important for the future, thinking about, asking people what they need and what they want, that feels obvious. But then also thinking about, and this might be in there, and I apologize, I didn't get a chance to look through all everything. What are folks willing to offer? Like, what are our assets in this community? Because I think we miss that, and we have incredible assets. Folks are coming here with whole lives of just careers and other things, and we kind of know those. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to bring that into the assessment as well. And that, for me, there is a connection in there. I don't think I made it very clear, but like, what the future is, it just gives us more information. It gives us another way to think bigger about what's possible or what's needed, or, what the shape of the library is going to be. We don't know. So let's have as much material to work with as we can. So it resonates to think outside the box. I agree with everything that everyone said. And I do feel a little bit nervous, like, are we going to get exactly what we need from this when we don't even know if, we're going to cancel masks and Denmark is done with COVID and I'm done with COVID, but, is COVID done with us? I don't think so. So just on my mind. But yeah, thanks.
Appreciate that comment. Anne or David or Annie, if you have any thoughts too.
John, a concise 2 cents. I couldn't say it better than Kay. Presenting the assessment to encourage thinking outside the box is top for me, and the location issue that Lynn brought up are to me the two overriding issues. And comment, I found the Grand County, while thorough, I found the outcomes very uninspiring. So that's 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. I guess their director at CalCon was able to make a more impressive presentation to us than what the report reads, is all I can say. Anne?
I think that one important thing is that we make sure that the questions that are asked tie back to the objectives that we just talked about. Because if they don't, then we're not doing a very good job of guessing what the needs are at this point. I also have a concern as well about making sure that the voices of our entire community are heard. And so asking for this in multiple ways, I think is going to be important. Because and maybe making it accessible for lots of different people too, in lots of ways, like maybe wording things differently or in multiple languages, or having the ability to have it read to someone. I don't know what all those possibilities might be, but accessibility, I think, is a key issue for me.
Thank you. You're very true. Okay, I think we lost Pete. Disconnected. So I guess my comments would be, I think what I'm hearing is a need for a review of the process that whoever we hire and the type of questions that are considered, that we need a kind of a committee that I'm sure certain staff that you would select, Claudine, but I'd like to suggest that there be a couple of trustees included in the review of that before it goes live. And I'll ask for volunteers. I have a couple of people in mind already, so if you don't volunteer, you'll get named. Anybody else? Any other thoughts, comments on this topic? As far as the process that Claudine suggested, really, I've heard about the type of questions and what actually happens with the survey, but the idea of just going out for bids without a formal RFP, I haven't heard any major objections to that at this point. Of course, we can't take action tonight, but we'll be making a recommendation with regard to that at the February board meeting.
John, I have a
Okay.
question.
Yes.
Was Pete also with you and Lynn in that session?
Yes, he was.
Okay, I'm sorry that he
Mhm.
dropped off. I just would have liked to have heard if he.
Well, our discussion afterwards pretty much mimics what Lynn and I have said, I think.
May I take a moment to thank everyone for their thoughtful insight into what we don't want this to be. And I want to circle back to, I'm sure it's 25 years old now, but it was something that really captured my attention about thinking outside the box and not asking rote questions to your users. But the example that was shared with me many years ago was when the airlines were trying to figure out, almost a generation ago, what did people want? So please put your minds out of COVID time and, pre-COVID, but also kind of pre-technology. And they weren't getting a lot of inspiring responses from their surveys because somebody came in, some thoughtful person came in and said, people don't know what they don't know. And if you keep asking them, what else do you want? They only know the experience they've had. And so the outcome of that story is we're also used to having a plug right under our seat now when you're in a plane. Apparently that did not come from a power outlet. That did not come from the public clamoring for it. It was deduced by consultants who said, we have to stop giving them more of the same. We have to give them something that they don't know that we're able to provide. So I realize that's not a super sexy example, but it's a subtle point of, I think, Lynn, I'm trying to actively listen. I think that's what you're saying is we're not doing a gap analysis here, right? What we're saying is there's a future where we want to be nimble for it and prepared. How can we help the people, the respondents, help us provide the services that they want without pigeonholing them into what they've already experienced? So I hope I've got that. And I definitely hear everyone else, the idea of if we keep doing questionnaires and survey monkeys, there's a certain kind of person who answers that. And how do we get outside of our very beloved but usual suspects? I think I've got it. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Appreciate everyone's comments. Keep thinking about it. And if you have other comments, we will have some time at the board meeting to cover those as well. Okay. I think that would conclude unless anyone has any final comments. I don't see anyone wishing to speak. So it is 7:31 p.m. and we will close our study session for February. And